been seeing a lot of videos on YouTube lately ranking things in Oblivion Remastered. Things like best Daedric weapons, best Daedric artifacts, the best birth signs, best doomstones, the best order to do the quests in, the best hidden secrets. But I thought in today's video we should do some real serious ranking, and that's ranking which incarnations of the Atronachs from the Elder Scrolls games are the hottest, doing the real work here. So, in this video, we're going to be ranking how hot Atronachs are in the tiered rating system. And we're going to do it based off of release of the game. But before joining me on this rating video and lore deep dive, it would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. Helps me make more of this content. Thank you. So we're going to go through each rendering of each Atronach from each game of Elder Scrolls and put them into the tiered rating system here. And the first game where Atronachs are introduced is in Daggerfall. So we're going to start with the Daggerfall Atronach. And first we have the Fire Atronach from Daggerfall. And to be honest, not looking that hot. Also not very interesting. I mean, it's just kind of like a weird orange and brown noise put over a very generic human model, basically. Sort of poor design, not very hot. We're going to be putting the Daggerfall Fire Atronach into the D tier. Next, we have the Frost Atronach from Daggerfall. And this is a little bit better designed. Once again, not very hot whatsoever. There's nothing very appealing about anything with this Atronach, so we're gonna give him just one little bump up just because there's at least some more design choices other than just purely a noise texture on a human body shape, basically. So we'll put that in the C tier. And then we have a very sort of forgotten about and not very often mentioned Atronach, which is the Iron Atronach from Daggerfall. And once again, this is just a black texture on a human body. Kind of has some armor, it seems like, question mark, but that could just be its skin. Once again, not very sexy, not very attractive, going into the D tier. And that's it for Daggerfall. Now we're going to move on to Morrowind. And this is where we have the Flame Atronach. And as attractiveness goes, I would say this one's a little bit better, obviously, than the Daggerfall one. Not a huge amount better. I like the kind of raver slash BDSM character kind of a look with him, so we're gonna give him a solid B just because it does look like an interesting fella. And then we have the Frost Atronach from Morrowind, and this guy I'd say has a little bit better detail in him. I like the pants, I like the underwear with the shoulder pads and the boots. He kind of seems like some German guy who's really into really pumping it, and he's equipped to do the pumping. So we're gonna put him in the B tier because he's at least looks like he's actually, you know what, we're gonna put him in the we'll put him in the B tier just because I think there's some better options, but he's solid though. He's definitely better than this. I would say he's definitely better than the Fire Atronach from Morrowind, but not a huge amount better. So he's B tier. Then we get to the Storm Atronach from Morrowind. And this guy is an interesting looking fella. He looks kind of a little unhappy, and he's got good abs, I would say, at least kind of good abs. But still kind of just a mound of rocks for the most part, but he's got like kind of a cool hairstyle on top. So I think we'll put him, you know, honestly, just cuz the other Storm Atronachs don't do so well, we're going to put him in the B tier. And then next, we have OG Oblivion. And in OG Oblivion, I would say the Flame Atronach for OG Oblivion has a good feminine quality to it. Nothing super amazing, though. Also, it seems like it's, you know, either it's a spinner or kind of just a weird little nymph character. So it's got some feminine qualities to it, but it's not 100% human or, you know, as much as like, you know, like it's like Sabrina Carpenter if it was a Flame Atronach, you know, so not really that human, honestly, because she's not very human. So it's kind of like a spinner Flame Atronach. So I'm going to put it just in the B tier, because we can definitely do better with Flame Atronachs. And I'd say that, honestly, this is kind of where the Frost Atronach kind of starts to take off a little bit. I'm going to say, you know, solid abs, cool looking face, you know, decent butt. I honestly think the Frost Atronach from the OG Oblivion is kind of surprising, but like probably the sexiest Atronach of the OG Oblivion is the Frost Atronach. Solid abs, good ass. You know, you gotta go with fundamentals here. And then we get to the Storm Atronach from the OG Oblivion. Not great in my opinion. Once again, just a mound of rocks, even less human-based, humanoid. So I'm going to say we're going to put him in the C tier. You know, not really a whole lot going on here. And that takes us to Skyrim. And I guess we'll just continue with the Storm Atronach. The Skyrim Storm Atronach is like literally just floating rocks. Like literally got some like hands floating around. It's got a little bit of a head, but the rest of it's just some very loose lightning effects. Really not good quality in my opinion. I gotta put that in the C tier in my opinion. Then we get to the Frost Atronach from Skyrim. And I would say this is definitely an interesting reiteration, especially considering how good the Frost Atronach from OG Oblivion looked and how sexy that looked. And I wouldn't say the Frost Atronach from Skyrim looks sexier, but it's definitely got like a style to it. It's kind of like the butt plug of the Atronachs, at least. And so, you know, maybe this is like kind of like the bad dragon of Atronachs, because trying to shove that up your ass would be kind of tough. So I think we kind of, I kind of have to respect the ingenuity and the sort of being out there and still yet being somewhat sexual. So I think we still have to put the Frost Atronach from Skyrim in the A tier just because of the quality of that alone. And then we finally get to kind of the OG of the horniness of Atronachs debate, and that is the Flame Atronach from Skyrim. And I think, you know, kind of blows everything away. Like the effects on the armor sort of defining the female shape here, and the effects of the fire effects to give form to it all, really does a great job. Very solid pieces of work here. Kind of has to go into the S tier because, you know, this is the thing that kind of started it all. And then we get to the ESO Atronachs, and first is the Air Atronach, which is very specifically only the ESO. And the Air Atronach has the same problem as the Storm Atronachs. Really not a whole lot going on. Got some decent tribal tattoos, question mark? So, like, I guess there's that at least. You know, maybe someone finds this frowning thing kind of alright. So I guess we'll throw that into the B tier, I guess. Just because it's at least a little bit better than just the standard Storm Atronach, but okay. And honestly, the Flame Atronach from ES is definitely a downgrade in my opinion. Still probably an A tier. Still decent amount of, you know, the female sexuality. Still has some good curves to her, but just nowhere near as good as the Skyrim Atronach, Flame Atronach. Now the ESO Frost Atronach, I feel like is someone took like the Oblivion Atronach and the Skyrim Atronach and tried to kind of like meet in the middle, and the two are very distinct in style of sexiness, one being more of like a sex toy and the other one being a sexy man. So I think, and it just kind of doesn't work in either direction, so I'm going to kind of have to just put the Frost Atronach from ESO into the C tier. Just really doesn't really hit it for me in any way. And then another sort of not really often shown Atronach, the Glass Atronach. And this is once again kind of just a rip-off of the Frost Atronach. Really not looking that great. Kind of goes in the D tier. Very forgettable design. You know, you can look at there's those videos up on the internet of the guy who shoves the glass thing up his ass and it breaks, and you know that's not a great experience. And so I don't think the Glass Atronach is something that you want to be recommending to people, and honestly just doesn't look very sexy. Now the Iron Atronach from ESO, which is kind of like a callback to the Daggerfall one, that one's at least somewhat more interesting. I'm more cool with that one. It's, you know, very well shown that they have a heart, like a nice, you know, soft gooey center to them, which I think is at least a little bit nicer. So we'll put that in the C tier. And then we have the Stone Atronach from ESO, which is a new Atronach that they haven't ever had in a mainline game and none of the other side games. But in ESO there is one. And, you know, this is also kind of like more of like a sex toy one, I would say, as far as sex, and it's like kind of like the DP one. And so in that regard, I'm going to give it a B tier, because at least it seems like it serves a very mechanical purpose when, you know, judging its sexiness. And so I think that's at least a solid B tier there. And the Storm Atronach from ESO, I think, is a little bit better than the Skyrim one, but not a whole lot better. I'm going to say that we're going to put that in like the B tier, you know, decently. Well, actually, no, let's put that in the C tier. That's really not that much better. So we're going to put that in the C tier. And then finally, we get to the Oblivion Remastered. And first, we'll go over the Storm Atronachs again. And, you know, they look a lot better. At least they kind of have a better humanoid shape to them. You know, they kind of look like they're just dudes ready to hang out for the gangbang, at least a little bit. So, like, I'd say we can give them, you know, a solid C tier. Like, actually, you know what? Let's bump them up to B. I think they'd be down for it. So I'd say they look like they're down for it. This guy over the left here looks like he's ready for it. So we're going to put him in the B tier. And then, honestly, a huge upgrade, kind of a return to form, is the Frost Atronach from Oblivion Remastered. Not, you know, over the top amazing, but still got the great ass. The spikes are still there. Very on brand, on theme. If you got a thing for Frost and dudes in their butts, then, you know, Frost Atronach is definitely there for you. So we'll put that in the A tier. And then finally, kind of the coup de grace here, the return to form of the original Skyrim is the Oblivion Remastered Flame Atronach. Definitely solid S tier. You know, you can't get any better than that. Basically just improving on what the original Skyrim Flame Atronach design is. Just better curves, better visualization of the female form. Can't deny that. So, kind of seems like, honestly, the Flame Atronach is really hitting on all cylinders and getting into that S tier. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's a meme at this point, with all the memes being put on our Oblivion about the Flame Atronach and making sure you get your fire resist potion before you fuck it so that you don't burn your dick off. And it became such a big issue that people were making this joke so often that the posting of how sexy the Flame Atronachs in the game has been banned from Arb/Oblivion. You can no longer make the post because the horse is already dead, and people have been hitting it way too often, and so therefore we are no longer allowed to make those memes and jokes on the subreddit anymore, because too much of a good thing, and people couldn't let their leave the horny posting alone, basically. And there is actually some interesting lore for the Atronachs. They're not just purely you know, rock, paper, scissors, fire, lightning, and frost thing in game system. There is actually lore around them. And I know that you probably thought that this video was just purely going to be a horny posting video, but I now have you in my clutches, and you're going to learn something. I got you. You're going to learn something now. And we learn about the Atronachs in Darkest Darkness, in a description of various Daedra. In Morrowind, both worshippers and sorcerers summon lesser Daedra and bound Daedra as servants and instruments. Most Daedric servants can be summoned by sorcerers only for very brief periods within the most fragile and tenuous frameworks of command and binding. This fortunately limits their capacity for mischief, though in only a few minutes most of these servants can do terrible harm to their summoners as well as their enemies. Worshippers may bind other Daedric servants to this plane through rituals and pacts, such as arrangements result in the Daedric servant remaining on this plane indefinitely, or at least until their bodily manifestations on this plane are destroyed, precipitating their supernatural essences back to oblivion. Whenever Daedra are encountered at Daedric ruins or in tombs, they are almost invariably long-term visitors to our plane. Likewise, lesser entities bound by their Daedra lords into weapons and armor may be summoned for brief periods, or may persist indefinitely. So long as they are not destroyed and banished, the class of bound weapons and bound armors summoned by temple followers and conjurers are examples of short-term bindings. Daedric artifacts like Mehrunes Razor and the Mask of Clacivus Vile are examples of long-term bindings. The Tribunal Temple of Morrowind has incorporated the veneration of Daedra as lesser spirits subservient to the immortal Alasmivi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. The triune godhead of Almexia, Solthasil, and Vivek. These subordinate Daedra are divided into the good Daedra and the bad Daedra. The good Daedra have willingly submitted to the authority of the Almasivi. The bad Daedra are rebels who defy Almasivi, treacherous kin who are more often adversaries than allies. The good Daedra are Boethia, Azura, and Mephala. The hunger is a powerful and violent lesser Daedra associated with Boethia, father of plots, a sinuous, long-limbed, long-tailed creature with beast-skulled head, noted for its paralyzing touch and its ability to disintegrate weapons and armor. The winged twilight is a messenger of Azura, goddess of dusk and dawn. Winged twilights resemble the feral harpies of the west, though the feminine aspects of the winged twilights are more ravishing and their long, sharp-hooked tails are immeasurably more deadly. Spider Daedra are the servants of the Mephala, taking the form of spider humanoid centaurs with a naked upper head, torso, and arms of human proportions, mounted on the 8 legs and armored carapace of a giant spider. Unfortunately, these Daedra are so fierce and irrational that they cannot be trusted to heed the commands of the spinner. As a consequence, few sorcerers are willing to either summon or bind such creatures in Morrowind. The bad Daedra are Mehrunes Dagon, Malakath, Sheogorath, and Molag Bal. 3 lesser Daedra are associated with Mehrunes Dagon: the agile and pesky Scamps, the ferocious and beast-like Clanifer, and the mobile and deadly Dremora. The crocodile-headed humanoid Daedra called the Daedra is a servant of Molag Bal, while the giant but dim-witted Orgrim is a servant of Malakath. Sheogorath's lesser Daedra, the Golden Saint, a half-clothed human female in appearance, is highly resistant to magic and a dangerous spellcaster. Another type of lesser Daedra often encountered in Morrowind is the Atronach, or elemental Daedra. Atronachs have no binding kingships or alignments with Daedra lords, serving one realm or another at whim, shifting sides according to seduction, compulsion, or opportunity. So, from this, we learn that Atronachs are not just elemental beings that are summoned, they're actually full-on Daedra. They are demons, they're summoned from oblivion that, sorcerers use to, bend to their will, and obviously it seems like from what people are posting on the Oblivion subreddit are having sex with them. And it seems like in this darkest darkness, we kind of hear a little bit of a warning that sorcerers do somewhat get hurt by their own summonings of Daedra. So it kind of makes sense that we're, tiering on attractiveness these elemental Daedra, because it seems like sorcerers may be using them for illicit purposes in the caves that they're doing their summonings. Another interesting tidbit that I find interesting is that Daedric artifacts are also Daedra themselves, like living Daedra. So like when you summon your bound dagger or bound sword or bound boots or bound helmet, it's a living demon Daedra that is conforming itself to the shape of some gloves or a weapon, or and even the Daedra artifacts that the Daedra lords give you are sort of manifestations of Daedra that have been turned into these artifacts, which I think is very interesting and also kind of disturbing, but it's cool lore. And then if we're thinking about what Daedra might be like in Elder Scrolls 6, well, I hope that they're still sexy, that's really important, but also they could expand upon this by creating what is described in Tamrielic lore as Monarch Atronach, and that's described in the section on the Ice Blade of the Monarch. The Ice Blade of the Monarch is truly one of Tamriel's most prized artifacts. Legend has it that the evil archmage Almo Selmo enchanted the claymore of a great warrior with the soul of a frost monarch, a stronger form of the more common frost Atronach. The warrior Thugunar Asi was to play a part in the assassination of a great king in a far-off land, and become the new leader. The assassination failed and the archmage was imprisoned. The ice blade freezes all who feel its blade. The blade circulates from owner to owner, never settling in one place for long. So this is something that I think would have an interesting tie-in if they decided to go to Hammerfell for Elder Scrolls 6, because they could introduce the Monarch Atronachs, which would be a cool, like, oh, this is like a boss Atronach that you have to fight, which would be a cool moment. But also the Ice Blade of the Monarch kind of fits in with the sword singers of the Alakir. So it could be like some big weapon that, you go on a huge quest to find, that you then also maybe have to kill a monarch, or it's useful for killing monarchs, or, kind of an interesting way that I could see that they could expand the lore of Atronachs in Elder Scrolls 6. And they definitely need to make sure that they keep them sexy, though. That's really important. But thanks for joining me on this lore and rating deep dive on the Atronachs of Elder Scrolls. It would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way to helping me make more of this content. Thank you.